Hi everyone, Lisa Haven here, and I've got an amazing and very huge report to share with you, one that you're going to want to sit down for. Now I have with me a special guest, amazing guy. I've read quite a few of his books, seen quite a few of his movies, but that is Steve Quayle. And what we have to talk about today is actually true legends, the Holocaust of the giants. Back in the biblical times, the Bible talks about giants that roamed the earth before and even after the flood. We know the story of David and Goliath, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. But in this particular account, what Steve Quayle has done is taken what's in the Bible and said, well, let's prove that once and for all. Well, before I bring him on, I want to show you some things that I saw in his movie, The True Legends, The Holocaust of the Giants. Amazing movie. You guys got to see it. I'm going to leave a link below. You can buy it on Vimeo there, but you guys are going to want to see this. If you want proof for giants, we have it. On the screen here, I'm going to throw up what is called the annual report of the Bureau of Ethnology to the Smithsonian. This is back from the year 1883 to 1884. So it's the annual report of the Bureau of Ethnology of the Secretary of the Smithsonian Institute, the 5th edition. But in this, I wanted to throw it on the screen because the Smithsonian admits that there are giants. As you see on the screen, I'm just going to read the section. All the bones, except those of the left forearm, were too far decayed to be saved. These were preserved by 2 heavy copper braces, which yet surround them. The skeleton found laying in the middle of the floor of the vault was of unusual large size, measuring 7 foot 6 inches in length and 19 inches between the shoulder sockets. This is the size of a giant. Keep in mind, these were found back in, this is from, like I said, 1883, 1884, and back then, imagine the size, because people were a little bit smaller back then. Here's another one from that same file. This is 1883 to 1884 here. And it says, near the original surface, some 10 to 12 feet from the center on the lower side were discovered laying at full length on its back, an unusually large skeleton, the length being somewhere over 7 feet. So there's another one. And here is that same edition, and I just want to show you a few of these here. But you can see at the depth of about 13 feet down into the thing, it says, and a little north of the center of the mound were 2 very large skeletons. And I find it interesting that they didn't even label the height on that particular one. And then here is another source. This is the annual report of the Board of Regents of the Smithsonian back from 1877. And you can see here in this section, the larger one must have come from the tusk of a monster. It was so big. To furnish material for such a gorget, it must have been 12 inches in diameter. These have 2 holes in the edge near each other, and they were most probably worn suspended on the breast and may have been emblems of authority. One of them was in the grave of a giant, for a large man could pass the lower jawbone around his face. I mean, imagine that. And the thigh bone was 4 inches longer than a man who is 6 foot 2 inches. Imagine how big of a person that had to fit. A piece was fractured off the edge by accident after taking it up. So there's some of the stuff from the Smithsonian. There are literally, 10 or 15 more of these. But Steve Quayle, enough from my end. I proved that these files exist in the Smithsonian, and I'm going to leave links. Tell us what's going on with the giants.
Well, first of all, the great Smithsonian cover-up is real. James Smithson, who basically endowed the Smithsonian, had his own ideas about who he wanted to appoint as his successor pretty much when he passed away. And he appointed Powell, James Wesley Powell. Lake Powell is named after it, the Powell expedition, who didn't believe that the ancients were as sophisticated as we know they were. And he maintained that everybody in the Americas were indigenous, as opposed to being, Lisa, those who came from all over the world. And let me make something clear. When our expedition went to Peru, the conquistadors and those chroniclers who accompanied Pizarro talked about skulls that from the front of the eye socket to the back of the skull were 36 to 42 inches. That would put these giants at close to 18 feet.
What's the normal size for a head?
Yeah. Excuse me?
What's the normal head size?
Well, the normal head size between your eye socket and the back of the head is 6 to 8 inches on somebody with a big head, okay? And obviously, if we're talking about politicians in Washington, I mean, their heads are off the charts. So, we'll let that one go. But what has happened all over the world? Let me share this. I spent 44 years of my life chronicling the presence of giants in antiquity and myths, legends, and the actual bones, artifacts, etc. Now, there's a lot of people that have a problem accepting the fact that even the Egyptians were in the United States. But you just spoke about 1884, the very, the time limit the time period you're discussing when these bones were found. And the prime minister of Egypt from 1884 to 1888, his last name was Pasha, Pasha. And it's interesting because he basically requested that the artifacts from North America be returned to his homeland. And if they wouldn't return the Egyptian artifacts, that they would destroy them. So there's a big fight on who came to the Americas first. And it was even before the Chinese came here. Now, the red-haired giants that, if you've ever heard of the Lovelock giants in Nevada, they're always red hair. The California giants that L.A. Marzulli talks about, red hair. The Chinese giants that have just hit the news. And by the way, there are total disinformation attempts being made at their size. When you're talking about someone, people just think tall. You've got to expand every part of their anatomy. You are just doing it when you're talking about the thigh bone, the hip bone, and all the jawbone. And what is problematic is there's so many of these. Look, there's over 1,000 newspaper articles addressing giants. Now, why? Here's the question I want to get right out of the chute with you. The reason why giants are covered up is because they absolutely validate and give evidence to the biblical narrative in Genesis chapter 6. And the idea is simply this, that there were giants in the land in those days. And after those days, that's before the flood of Noah and after the flood of Noah. And King Og of Bashan is reported to be close to 18 feet tall. Well, what's interesting, just in the last month, and this is whatever day this is, in July 10th, we're seeing some of the church fathers like Eusebius in about 325 to 350 AD talking about the giants in suspended animation in the British Isles. Suspended animation. And he said King Og is that entity that the Romans called Jupiter. So whenever you see mythology, legends, or ancient history and traditions, they're always basically derivations of the giants, because the giants weren't like Shrek. I tell people, they were not these dumb oafs that just went around cracking people's head opening and eating them, and obviously the history of giants is one of cannibalism. In Numbers 13, 32, 33 in the Old Testament, Joshua and Caleb described that, the spies describe that they were as grasshoppers in the eyes of the giants, and this is where you typically, people think, well, that's just a metaphor for they were taller than them. No, the cities of Bashan, the land of the giants, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, and I said, by the time you're all done, you got a bunch of uptights. Well, what Timothy Alberino and our Gen 6 expedition team were able to track, and this is in the Holocaust of Giants, the DVD. And by the way, it's on Vimeo, Vimeo, and they can download it. And people all over the world who watch you and, watch and follow us on different talk shows and stuff can go and download the Holocaust of Giants. We have in our production capacities and capabilities interviewed more people who have dug up live evidence, of a live cover-up of the evidence of giants, always being controlled. It's like, seriously, it's like the Raiders of the Lost Ark. The guys in the black coats come in, and they basically, or the men in black come in, and they take everything. I personally have been on talk radio, I don't know if you know this, 25 years, and I had people in the Ohio River Valley who were excavating a field, turn over a couple of giants, and they were 9 feet tall. And they made the mistake of telling the post office, and the postman, contact the FBI, and within less than 18 hours, the FBI was there. They seized the bones, if you will, the skeletons, and told the people to shut up. Well, that's the cover up all over the world. Now, here's the reason why the cover up.
Well, let me ask you before you get in the reason why. Do you get harassed?
Oh, absolutely, all the time. All the time. I won't go into all the harassment, but the death threats are there. The innuendos are there. Timothy Alberino, the writer-director of the Holocaust of Giants and the Unholy Sea. We have three DVDs out there. He and his whole family were almost murdered, okay? And I mean really murdered. So the thing is, and we're both in Bozeman, Montana, so yeah, but people pray for us all over the world. And why this is critical, because the Bible talks about there's going to be a time when there's nothing that's been hidden that isn't going to be made known and revealed. And as we see all of the exposure in the political realm and the scientific realm, you remember even Mars. Look at Mars. We were told there's no water, there's never been life, there's never been this, there's never been that. And all of a sudden now, hey, ancient microbes. Hey, it looks like there's water frozen here. So what this is soft disclosure. And why this is critical is George Orwell said, they who control the past can pretty much determine the future. They can write whatever future they want. So we're being selectively fed manure. And that's why there's so much, how would you say this tactfully? That's why it's so high and deep all over when it's the difference between true history and ancient history. So this is why it's been a major undertaking. And listen, being on talk radio for 25 years, I've had people in all realms of government. And there's no way I could know what I know outside of the grace of God being first and foremost, but then the people. And God said to me years ago, he said, if you'll warn my people, I'll bring the people that know. Because I can't track down some guy from the outback in Australia or the Antarctic expedition. So this is how people contact us. And it's interesting because I have literally people come by. I have a physical brick and mortar store in Bozeman, Montana, or they will come up to a conference and hand me something. And everybody's afraid to tell, but more and more people are breaking ranks with that in the intelligence community and even in the anthropology community, anthropological community, the archaeological community, because things just don't add up. For instance, I have some listeners and viewers that were in Florida, Jacksonville, and the Smithsonian's excavating a site there. And the rumor got out from internally that they were giants there. So one of my listeners went up and intercepted one of the archaeologists coming out of the tent, Lisa. And he said, so you guys covering up the giants? And the guy threw down his trawl or whatever he's in there digging with and said, there are no giants. There are no giants. And he ran off. So the Great Smithsonian Cover-Up is underway. And the great uncovering of the Smithsonian is underway.
I say good to that. And now you guys, I want to get this out before we get too far into it, but you're actually having a conference that now that I know about it, I might actually go and maybe even bring my father. He'd love it. But yeah, it's in, and I have the details. Where did I write? Branson, Missouri, right? And it's September 15th through the 17th, True Legends Conference. Now, I'll leave a link for all you below. You have information on that. You have a link on that, Quayle?
Yeah, we do have a link on it. And let me share this. I think we're 85% sold out, but we also are going to have live streaming. Believe it, this has been astonishing, I think, to Tim and I. The amount of people watching Vimeo, okay, they obviously stream it, and it costs $15 to stream it, $25 to buy it. But because postage is so expensive all over the world now, we tell people if you're out of the country, and we just went on the expedition to Peru, and we had people from, I think, 4 different countries there. And so this message is getting out. And what's fascinating, Lisa, the conference is, in my opinion, going to be, I don't think it'll be repeated. It's going to be myself. It's going to be Timothy Alberino. It's going to be L.A. Marzulli. Tom Horn is going to speak. Dr. Michael Lake. We're going to have Derek Gilbert. And we're going to have Anselm P. Rambla. And you can take this wherever you want to go, but Anselm's the only one that ever excavated in the Coricancha, which is the convent of Santo Domingo in Cusco, that was over the Shinkana. The Shinkana is a tunnel system. But to tell you there's an underground and underworld tunnel system that goes throughout the whole world is not an understatement. What was interesting, you ask us if we get harassed. Let me give you a good example of real-time harassment. They had in obviously they knew we were coming. But we had Anselm with us on our expedition. He flew in from Barcelona, Spain, and everybody flew in from different parts of the world. We had some people from Russia, from Great Britain, Australia, South Africa. And these people are how do I say this? They know what's going on. And I'm just overwhelmed that while we were there in the convent of Santo Domingo, the Coricancha, we were told that the prior, the head guy of the convent, who had given Anselm permission and had seen what he'd found, was no longer on the premises and nowhere to be found. These were the guys in the multi-$1,000 suits. I mean, obviously it appears like they were imported from Italy for this, occasion, but they really got bent out of shape. And so Anselm was there, and Father Gamarra, who's just a lovely, lovely man, was there on site, even though we were told he wasn't. In other words, they were trying to shut us down. They were saying he wasn't there. So we have eyewitness film. We took our film cameraman there, and we've got this on film. So the official position is here. This is what's interesting. They don't exist. The tunnels don't exist, though everybody knows they exist. And so now you've got Machu Picchu, which is an amazing place, but let me give you something, and this will excite you. It's kind of like when you do your investigation. It's never what's on the surface, it's what's underneath. And just in the last day, 2 days ago, I'm sorry, either yesterday or 2 days ago, within 1 hour, I had two independent people contact me on what they had experienced at Machu Picchu with the underground tunnels and caves, etc. There's so much stuff in Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu, the Incas did not build Sacsayhuaman. The structures there. That's that area that you see where there are giant boulders and rocks, hewn building blocks, if you will, that are so carved at right angles, 90-degree angles, and the technology did not exist in the world of Inca because you can't use coral and primitive tools to mill such astronomically precise building edifices, and the same thing at Machu Picchu. So what's fascinating to me is the fact that right now, I just saw where I think either the History Channel or National Geographic is going to release their big expose on Machu Picchu, from a French explorer, and he's done his homework. So we've got all these famous explorers, and Anselm P. Rambla will be at the conference in Branson. And Tim and Anselm kind of like it's amazing because Tim's probably one of the only people in the world that can translate in real time what Anselm's done. And when I say this, it almost sounds like a hype, and I don't mean to have hype on Skype, but the point being is that they're going to release information that nobody in the world has ever even embraced. And so it's pretty important. In other words, this isn't your typical conference where this guy speaks on this guy speaks on the central theme of the conference in Branson, True Legends, is the underlying fact that the fallen angels produced the giants of old, and let me share some words. We argue, but Nephilim are the fallen angels. They're translated giants. That word's used only once before the flood, Genesis 6, and once after the flood. After that, all the giants are referred to as Rephaim, Rephaim, which comes from the Hebrew word Rapha, the dead. And then when a giant died, that evil spirit, the combination human, fallen angel, that's where all the demons come from. By the way, that's in the Book of Giants, which is in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it's also in the Book of Enoch.
Yeah, I've read the Book of Enoch, and yeah, that's what it says. When a giant or Nephilim dies, it becomes a demon. I can verify that. I read it.
The Valley of the Rephaim, see, again, everything is not a Nephilim, but Nephilim is translated giants. The correct translation is those who descend from the Nephal and there's fights over this. See, everybody wants to dismiss the supernatural, angelic, fallen angel realm. The Bible says a third of the angels fell. Now we're seeing, you can go on Matt Drudge's website any day, and what is it? Exorcisms are at an all-time high. You're seeing absolute demon possession. You've got the President Macron of France declaring he's the god Jupiter. Now, see, most people would say that's just he's just trying to use a metaphor or whatever. No, what's happening is when demons possess a human, they can only stay hidden so long. And when they can no longer, the humans can no longer, their personality contain it, they outpicture, okay? What's inside is coming outside. So that's why you're going to see the craziest stuff. And that's what Jesus said when he said, men's hearts failing them for fear of looking after those things coming upon the earth.
And we're headed to that spot. I mean, with the book of Revelations, when that plays out, well, that's hell on earth, literally. So there is a lot at stake here, and I think I have Christians, non-Christians, everybody who watches my channel here, and as far as giants, I mean, when the Smithsonian actually admits, and there was more. If people want more, I would just say go to the True Legends, the Holocaust movie, because you actually delved through it. And like I said, you saw the tangible evidence in the beginning of this video for giants, that they actually exist. Where are those bones going? Why doesn't the Smithsonian have those?
Well, let me share this. According to a Smithsonian insider, this will blow your mind, because that's a fair question for everyone to ask. There are 149 million out-of-place artifacts, or scientific artifacts, or anomalous historic artifacts that the Smithsonian houses, I believe, in 14 warehouses that are longer than football fields, okay? Now, remember this. They're out of place historically. They're out of place scientifically. The black ops, you know the term black ops, black operations. Well, there's that people assume that anything that's secret, military, that in the military, that's a black op. I'm talking about a very different form of people that don't officially exist anymore, that basically go through the earth, scouring the earth, because there's a lot of stuff that literally goes bump in the night. I had a 4-star general, active duty, tell me that if you've ever seen the movie The Cave, or The Descent, those are pretty scary movies. The bottom line is that the stuff they deal with is 10 times worse than that. So here's what people have got to understand. We're not talking just about bones. We're specifically talking about giants and stasis, a form of suspended animation. So how can a guy 325 years ago, a church father, basically, how can he use the word stasis and talk about the awakening of the giants? How could he know that? And this is considered, Eusebius is, some people pronounce Eusebius, but Eusebius is one of the most, quote, prominent founders, and people can't argue with that. By the way, all the church fathers, all of them, Jerome, Polycarp, they all believed in this biblical dialogue that fallen angels were having sex with earth women producing. Now, why? The purpose of that was to destroy. Now, let me share this. I have non-Christians, and this is not a Christian argument. This is not a defend the Old Testament argument. This is a historic representation of true history versus convoluted cover-up that's going to be twisted, and you're seeing it. The majority of everything is the aliens created us. Panspermia. That they came, they seeded this planet with the Genesis seed, and not God, but they did. And so my question to all those people is, well, who created them? You see, the point is that with all of the intelligence gathering capabilities now of the everything that we think, do, and say is, all around us every day, kind of like the old Zager and Evan tune, is in the pill you took today. Now it's in the Wi-Fi you took today. So the thing is critical that people understand there is an ancient technology. King Solomon said it this way: there's nothing new under the sun, and that which has been will be again. So we're talking about ancient. You can go, and I've documented, others have documented the nuclear wars in the old Hindu empires, where desert areas are turned to glass. And you can match that glass from ancient India and ancient Far East to the stuff that took place in the above-ground testing in the desert Southwest when we were developing our atom bomb. So there's nothing new under the sun. So why is all this critical? It's because there's a mad dash right now to Antarctica. And you talked and you wanted me to cover that. I wrote the book, Empire Beneath the Ice, How the Nazis Won World War II. I stand by that statement.
Operation High Jump. Right, Operation High Jump.
1947. And the fascinating thing is that I was talking about this on Coast to Coast with George Norrie. And after the show, I got a call from a guy who was a great-grandson of someone whose job it was to move Hitler alive, and you're going to love this, not out of Brazil, but they moved him into the underground citadels in Peru. Now, Citadel, that's a city. So imagine that everything you think is that, hey, this is just all ruins, cobwebs, Raiders of the Lost Ark, idols, snakes, and, stuff that bites you, poisons you, or, angry natives, like obviously one of the Raiders of the Lost Ark. But the idea is this, that suppose that the technology, and for the record, the two missile guys of famous history, Dr. Werner von Braun became the head of NASA. Some people say I should say NASA because it's NASA is in the Bahamas. And then the other thing is Hermann Oberth. And both those men are on record as saying it wasn't that the Germans were any smarter than the West, but they had help. They had help. They both attest to, quote, alien and supernatural help, giving them advanced mathematics and understanding of everything from flying saucers to, quote unquote, stargates. And I document that. So Empire Beneath the Ice is not just an old history book. It will show you how so much, for instance, Dr. Mengele, everybody knows that obviously he went to South America and he produced a town, I think on the border of Brazil or in Brazil, that had just literally 100 pairs of twins. And twinning, that's where that word twinning, he perfected twinning, in vitro twinning. But they don't realize. No, twinning is different, okay? Cloning is an exact duplicate when they take any strand of your DNA, and Mengele was working on that until the time he died. And so the idea is this, that there's so much stuff hidden in the Antarctic that the world's leaders have gone down there, that the astronaut has gone down there, what's his name? The second guy to walk on the moon, James Irvin. Well, you can find that. But the thing is that when you've got the world's religious leaders and political leaders in Antarctica, and they're being briefed, and there's all these secret UN huddlings, and the defense aerospace industry from the United States is moving 1,000 engineers, and they're taking them down 2 miles. It's kind of like, you can look this up too. There was an old Doug McClure movie and he was the guy that played Trampas in The Big Valley, a Western. You're probably too young to remember that, but the point is that they have a entire couple, I think either 2 or 3 episodes of the land that time forgot, where the German subs literally go into this area under Antarctica. And I've published on my website the actual submariners diagrams of how far, how fast, the angle of descent in the submarine, down angle, all this stuff. And so what's astonishing is that the Third Reich moved the advanced weaponry, their technology and everything on U-boats and on flying craft. I mean, their flying saucer technology was real. And as you read about Operation High Jump, you know that Admiral Byrd basically came back to the United States with his armada that had gone down there and with their tail between their legs. And he tried to tell people, well, they sequestered Admiral Byrd, okay? They put him out of public contact. And then Forrestal, the first Secretary of Defense, he was thrown out Bethesda Naval Hospital's window because he wanted to tell the American people what they had found. Now, get this. I was quoting on, I believe, Coast to Coast, because, George has been very, very gracious to bring me on there and talk about this stuff. And I was talking about the former head of the German Navy. And his great-great-grandson got a hold of me, and I was quoting his great-great-grandfather, who basically said, the world is not yet ready for this information to be released. And he said, you're the only one, and he called me Mr. Quayle, I said, please call me Steve, that has ever quoted my grandfather or great-grandfather correctly. And he says, you know what they know. And he said, yes, sir, I do, but thank you for giving me the call. So what you can only do in this world, Lisa, you know this, you do the best job we can. Look, we do everything we do, and people get mad at us. I don't know if they get mad at you, but look, we're up against the most sophisticated, well-funded propagandists in the world. And not to mention that many of them are supernaturally empowered. So it's fascinating to me that God is using a simple passage in Genesis to basically show people the future. So again, controlling the past determines the future. So this is why it's so critical.
I agree. Now, in conclusion, maybe, and we'll wrap it up here, but what is beneath the ice? What's in those citadels? What's in the deep underground military bases, the DUMBs that you speak of in the True Legends, the Holocaust of the Giants in that movie there? What's in there?
Well, basically, it's live entities of such an advanced technology and understanding that have, in my opinion, been controlling the world. And in my opinion, I'm on record as stating this, when people think of fallen angels, they think of cherubs on the mantelpiece, at the holidays. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about supernatural beings that control human beings who yield to them. And so all the technology of CERN and the colliders that are working and the different particle physicists that are working to open up the dimensions, and trying to figure out how matter is held together and doing all this. And they mock the people like us because, they think in essence, Lisa, here's the promise. They believe they're going to give people eternal life, okay, that you'll get to live forever. They'll basically be able to give you intelligence that surpasses anything. In essence, your body will be turned into a computer memory source, and you'll be able to access that at any time. And basically, you're going to be as God. You're going to know everything. You'll be able to do everything, Probably won't be any tall buildings to leap over in a single bound. But if you look at the whole X-Men series and all of the video games, for the record, I've never played a video game in my life. I've seen the images, I've watched them, but I don't play them because I believe it's nothing more than conditioning. And I think it's, how do I say this? I think it's designed to keep people out of the real world and put them in a virtual world. And by putting them in a virtual world, in essence, what Satan has done is he's isolated them from reality. And when they lose track of reality, they're basically his pawns.
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy. My brother, my kids are kind of banned, but only because my brother is over the top with it. That's all I'll say. I love him to death. But yes, it's one of those things you got to be careful with. And because a lot of it is manipulating the brain. And there was actually a patent out. I don't know. I have a report that I'm going to do in the future that talks about getting the computer screen, developing the technology that will brainwash a person from the computer to the brain. And this is an actual patent that's been processed. And I can't quote the patent at the moment, but I will leave a link for everybody to look at that. But the technology has been patented and they are attempting to push that. So, well, we're kind of running on time here, and I just want to encourage you guys, make sure you get that movie. And I get nothing for it, just an FYI. That movie is so freaking amazing. The True Legends, the Holocaust of Giants. And look, Steve, you've got everything in there from ancient Indian tribes who went up to the mountains to, escape and then basically fleed in a day. I just loved that. They fleed in a day, and you prove it with some of the stuff, and they fleed from actual giants and how they can open portals. You talk about portal openings in there. And then also the city of Atlantis. You get into that. And the ancient city, we have Somalia and everything. So can you give maybe your website, your YouTube channel, any of that information to the viewers as well?
Well, thank you. The website is stevequayle.com, QUAYLE.com. We have the website called TrueLegendsTheSeries.com. And by going to TrueLegendsTheSeries.com, people can go on the Vimeo link there, Lisa, and watch either number 1, number 2, or number 3. The Holocaust of Giants is number 3. The Unholy Sea is number 2. And the number 1, it goes into the amazing building structures in South America. They all build on each other. Number 4 is underway. Number 4 is a mind blower. But what I want to encourage people to do that can't necessarily go to Branson, Missouri, and be there is to live stream. It's on my website, stevequayle.com, the front page. They can click on the banner. They can sign up for the live streaming. This will change everyone's view. And see, this is an antidote for the fear that's going to come. I want to make this clear. I get called everything from a fear monger, fear porn, everything they can call me. But here's the deal. people, when they come to grips with this, there was a reason why a holy God said to the children of Israel, go into the promised land and wipe out every man, woman, and child. Well, people say, what kind of a loving God would do that? One that was telling his creation to go kill the mutants, and the mutants in this case would have destroyed mankind forever. By the way, the giants were not vegetarians. I mean, they ate up. And when you look at the cannibals all over the world, for the record, it doesn't matter if you're in South America, Latin America. It doesn't matter if you're in Asia, whatever. The point is the giants ate the people. And Easter Island, we only saw the moai, those structures from pretty much the shoulders up, and then they dug down and found out those things are giants too. So this is a subject that is going to be so prevalent in the news, and I'm telling people, watch Mars. It's going to become more and more pertinent, and you can bet your bottom dollar that as we talk about this stuff, then they will try and grab the biblical narrative away from those of us who are explaining it, and they'll come on with the ancient aliens, because the ancient aliens, everybody's embracing that, okay? And again, we all have different viewers, but one thing that doesn't matter if you're Christian or not, when the evidence, the preponderance of evidence shows you something so totally different, I think now with, quote, the fake news, the mainstream news being proven fake, more and more people are turning to alternative news because we're the ones telling them, it's no longer conspiracy. And this is the greatest cover-up and the greatest cover-over of true history in the world. So again, the name is TrueLegendsTheSeries.com for the people to download it, but I want people to go on the Genesis 6 conferences. It's on my website, right in the middle, right above the hot headlines. And Lisa, I want to thank you. You're doing a great job. And, this is the first time we've been able to get together for a couple of years because, hey, you're busy, I'm busy, we're busy.
Yeah, well, I'm so thankful I brought you on. I'm going to have to bring you on again before the conference, maybe even get Tim on here. We might bring him on tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I would get Tim on. Tim is an interesting guy. You need to know this. He lived in the Amazon jungle for 10 years of his life. He's 33 years old. I mean, the guy is how do I say, he's so versed on this that it's astonishing. And he'll take you into areas that you just, I tease him. I said, Tim, you're Tim of the jungle. Tarzan's Tarzan of the jungle. And you both start with T's, But what's fascinating is that we were able to see in real time the cover up and the cover over going on. And you probably want to have him on because I'll tell you this, he knows what he's talking about. And he's the one that found the sources where the giants that fled from Joshua and Caleb and the children of Israel, they went to Sardinia and then they headed, pretty much west. And they even have a pillar to the Joshua, the usurper, So, I mean, they were making sure that instead of Kilroy was here, whatever, the fact is they were making sure that people understood that they did not like Joshua of Old Testament fame. So the idea is that everything from Sardinia is the seed to Atlantis. And what's fascinating is that the astral catastrophism involved in the sinking of what I would call the pre-flood of Noah times, okay? It's an amazing thing. By the way, the new book out, it's on my website. I think it's Unearthing the Lost World of the Cloud Eaters. I wrote half, Tom Horn wrote half, and compelling evidence of the incursion of giants, their extraordinary technology and imminent return. And I don't know, yep. This is I'm getting feedback, but I don't mean audio feedback, but I'm getting feedback. People are saying, thank you for putting it all in one thing. So it's like, I think 500 pages or something. I'm sorry, no, that's not right. That's the other one. This is like 490 pages, close.
Well, I've read a lot of your stuff, so it's amazing. I encourage all of it, and I'm going to leave links below, and I might actually be heading out to Branson, Missouri in September for that conference. So that would be awesome because I love you and I love your stuff.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Well, thanks again for coming on the broadcast, and I'll definitely bring you on again. And again, I'll have all the information below, including Steve's YouTube channel if you guys want to check that out as well. Well, I'm Lisa Haven and Steve Quayle signing out.